Hello everybody. Today we're doing What If Deku had a shadow clone quirk. And yeah, this is part 1, by the way. I'm trying to find something popular. If we can at least get 350 views on a What If, I will do a part 2. But as you can see, we haven't. Yeah, that's kind of it. So, yeah. On to our intro. No. Okay, so, kind of forgot I don't have an intro because, yeah. So, we are going to start off our What If when Deku is 4. Nothing changes, prior to that point. Izuku is still raised by Inko and everything. Yeah. Except Hisashi is there. Because, I've noticed something, guys. The what ifs that I actually find enjoying are the ones that change up the story. Like, if you guys know who Quietly is, he does Naruto what ifs, or Shadow Mania is his ult. I enjoy those so much. Someone probably doesn't, but, I do. So, I do want to just tell you guys, I will be changing up the premise of the story. So, as Izuku tries to stand up for himself, as he told Bakugo that he could be a much more better hero than Bakugo was, as Bakugo and his friends push him down to the ground, and Bakugo says, "What are you gonna do about that, Deku? You haven't even awoken your quirk. You're probably quirkless like the rest of them." As Izuku says, "Why would you say that, Kachan?" As Katsuki looks at him and says, "What do you mean, why would I do that? Because they're all below me. They need to learn their place in this society. The strong are meant to be strong, and the weak are the underlings. Don't you get it by now, Izuku? I'm the strong one. You're the weak one. Now, leave." As Izuku says, "No," as he claps his hands together for maybe, just maybe in the back of his mind, to awaken his quirk. But Izuku, as his hands make smoke out of them, he instantly smiles, as then he sees potentially what his quirk is, as a second version of him appears, and as Izuku says, "Attack him," as the clone quickly runs over and starts punching one of the bullies, as Izuku claps his hands together and uses as much as energy as he can, which is more so just tensioning it up in his head. And as he starts to get out of breath, he notices there's 10 of him, all fighting the bullies. There's 4 against Katsuki and 3 against the other 2. As Katsuki tries to defeat them, quote unquote, he explodes one in the face with all the power you can muster, as the clone quickly disperses in a cloud of smoke, as the other 3 begin punching him still. And after a while, they had all been dispelled, but the bully's had been bruised a lot, and one even had a little blood on him. And keep in mind, they're 4-year-olds. Very weak. Well, Katsuki not much, but yeah, he had a black eye, and yeah, he had some bruises on him. As all 3 of them get up and quickly run away. As Katsuki says, "You won't get away with this, stupid Deku," as he goes crying to his mom. And keep in mind, they're 4. That's not going to be what Bakugo is actually like. So, as Izuku runs home to his mom and tells her about his quirk, they quickly go to their quirk doctor. As the quirk doctor quickly examines him and takes an x-ray of his whole body, noticing he has the usual one joint in the pinky toe, signifying he does have a quirk, so he's not lying. And as he's telling this to Inko, he then says, well, kid, do what you did. Tense up in your head. As Izuku says, oh yeah, and I found an easier way for it. As he puts his left hand out with his middle and ring finger? Pointer finger out. And same thing with his right hand, except he makes a cross with his right to his left and says, clone, as one appears. And then the doctor says, well, let's step outside, as they step out into a large area for dangerous quirks, as Izuku says, clones, as he shouts that. All the clones he could muster at that time was around 30, which is still incredible for a kid. Well, like, in Naruto standards. And Inko says, oh my gosh, Izuku, that's amazing. As there was 30 Izukus, and Inko got overloaded with how adorable that would be. That would be an awful lot of All Might support in that one room. So, yeah. And this goes on for a couple years as Izuku was able to stand up to Katsuki. Slowly, as he grows older, his body would get stronger, along with the number of clones he could summon. But with his low physical strength, he made up in very much more clones. And by the time middle school rolled around, he could already summon 135 clones. And by this time, he was dead set on being a hero, because he wasn't bullied as much. It was just little fights that would pick up with Katsuki and him. And that was it. But he asked his mom if he could get some weights, and she said yes. And he started slowly getting his upper body strength a lot better. And as middle school, the end of it, rolled around, he continued building up strength in his arms and with his legs too, so he could be faster to catch people off guard with his clones. And during the summer of the second to third year, he made a similar ultimate move to Twice's, except it doesn't divide the strength between clones. They're the same strength. So he could make at most 1,000 with that jutsu, with that ultimate move. But it would obviously make Izuku vomit a lot because he was that exhausted. And he'd be extremely dehydrated. That is going to be the downfall of his quirk. He needs lots of water. Because, it divides. We'll just say it takes liquid for him. So, yeah. He needs to be full of water and to be, good with all that. And once that happens, he can unleash one full ultimate move. Or tons of clones to attack. So, as the last day of middle school rolls around, it's a normal day for Izuku, because when everyone heard he was going to UA, they were fine with it, because he could beat Katsuki quite easily, may I add. With only 3 or 4 clones, him alone could destroy Katsuki, even with Bakugo's insane quirk strength. 5 of Izuku versus him with Izuku having trained his body. And yeah, that easy for him. As Izuku is walking to his house on his normal route, because nothing had happened to him, he continues to look in his notes about heroism and say, well, Mom, time for 10 months of training. Kind of sad I'll have to go to summer school, though. And I do want to say, guys, for the 10 months of training, I have recently learned from a scene in My Hero that he trained during middle school. Well, during the 10 months of training time, he still had school. So that's saying something. Because, yeah. So we'll assume it was something like that. Or it was just another year of school. So we'll say it's summer school this time. Because, yeah, more detail. So, as Izuku continues learning, he does what he does in high school, where he does the leg thing and puts his legs up and he shakes violently. And Izuku does that, and everybody else just kind of stays away from him. They think, how could that smart of a kid get into summer school? And Izuku actually had an F in, we'll say, definitely not history, actually. Something stupid. Public speaking. He had an F in public speaking class in middle school. We'll say that, because, yeah, why not? So, Izuku, nervously, went into that, and he actually did pretty good. He was doing the entirety of summer school, got him through his nervousness. It almost completely cured him of it. And Izuku was still quite nervous, though, talking to other people, but in big crowds, he wasn't that scared, because he went through a whole 6 months of it. So, by the time 10 months had gone through, yeah, he was quite strong. He could handle a total of 200 clones at one time. Or 2 whole ultimate moves before he started vomiting and or passed out. By the way, guys, I do want to point out, if Izuku would need to, well, he'll still throw up and stuff, but he can nearly kill himself with an ultimate move he had discovered accidentally, which made 1,000 clones into one main body, and then added that to his strength, and he called it super mode. And when he used it, but it was only with 200, it just destroyed all of the garbage that he was using for training. He wasn't picking it up necessarily. He was just destroying it. So, yeah, that kind of helped with him. It was a win-win. So, as Izuku continues doing that, one day he arrives to see All Might, but he's training a kid. We'll just say it's some random kid. Maybe Mirio, actually, because he would have given it to Mirio. I don't think Bakugo gets it. Yeah, because All Might had clearly seen that Bakugo already had a quirk. So, maybe Mirio, who had worked from the bottom up with a weak quirk. Yeah. So, Mirio was training with All Might to clean the beach fully. As Izuku arrives and says, "Oh, are you cleaning the beach?" As All Might says, "Oh yeah, wanna help?" As Mirio says, "Oh yeah, that would be great if you could help us." As Izuku says, "I could help for sure." As he says, "Clone," as he puts his hands together. and makes around 145. As they're all shocked, and Izuku, with his a lot higher heightened upper body and leg strength, get it done quite fast. They'd actually done it in 3 days. They cleaned the beach, and they still had 2 months. So they trained together for that short time, and they get a lot stronger. And Izuku is extremely happy with what he can do. And Mirio also gets to know Izuku, and they're sort of buddies. And Izuku was ecstatic when All Might had finally revealed himself. And when I said All Might at the start, guys, I'm sorry, I meant Skinny Might, we'll say. And yeah. After that, All Might and Mirio waved goodbye as Izuku had to go home for the last 30 days to study because his mother wanted him to. And 30 days later, Izuku arrives at the UA campus saying, okay, I'm going to overflow the entire entrance exam with me. That's my plan. And I will reveal in the next video Izuku's capacity, if you're wondering, after the 10 months of training. So, yes, that is where we'll be leaving off for part 1 of What If Deku Had a Shadow Clone Quirk. Part 1. Actually, no, it's not. I am inspired, per se, by the YouTuber I mentioned. And, yeah. So, yeah, it was quietly. So, Izuku went into UA, the UA entrance exam. And as that happened, as he was walking up towards the stairs, he nearly trips, but he catches himself as a girl behind him says, "Oh, sorry, I was about to use my quirk on you. I thought you were going to fall." As Izuku looks at her and says, "Oh, it's fine." As Izuku, who had been with Mirio, had matured a lot. He was still quite silly and stuff, but he'd matured a lot. He learned that sometimes it was better to be serious. And he went into the exam after that. And the first stage of it was, in fact, it was a puzzle. As everyone gets to a desk, Izuku and everybody, as President Mike says, "Well, students, you'll have to find a way to get this very shape into this circle," as it was a triangle into a circle hole. As people who had shrinking quirks and quirks that wouldn't help a lot thought, "Oh, that's easy actually," as one person with a shrinking quirk quickly shrunk their triangle and stuck it in there. And people who had brute force also just shoved it in there. But with the people of lackeys done, as President Mike said, "Well, the entrance to the exam is that way," as he pointed to the exit. And no one noticed that, and everyone walked out. And President Mike closed the door after that and says, "Well, students who aren't incredibly gifted as that, this is the true exam. I'm not here for physical strength. In fact, we don't need it precisely. We need people who are smart and think outside the box here at UA." As everyone who had just left was quite sad with what happened. And yeah, they'd probably end up going to some other school. As Izuku thought to himself, "I was about to do the same thing." As President Mike says, well, if you all can do that, get the number that's actually inside that. As there's a couple layers to the box. As Izuku says, interesting. As he gets 5 of him all around his table, and they all try and squeeze the way through the box. And then as he was pushing down on it, he notices in the corner of his eye a open flap, but it was barely visible because it blended in so well. As he opened his box, as President Mike says, well, contestant number 301. Good job. You're the first one to pass phase 1 of the exam. Yes, this is merely phase 1 out of 4 of the exam. Actually, no. I'm sorry. My bad. 3. I will explain it to you to be nice. The first phase is this one, the puzzle. The second one is quirk capacity. We check to see how far you can use your quirk to. But at that same time, you'll have to... Actually, never mind, guys. The second phase will be a quirk evaluation almost. And as President Mike says, the third phase will be quick one-on-one fights, getting them done with as quick as we can. You nearly have to win 4 fights altogether to have a possibility of getting into UA high school. About a 15% chance, which is still pretty good for what it takes for everybody to get in. As everyone continues their work, and eventually a couple other students get past phase 1, but the second phase was a star with a circle next to it, as Izuku was trying to figure out what it meant, as it had a keypad next to it, and it was a riddle. You had to guess what the circle and the star meant, as it had the word astronomy next to it. I'm pretty sure this is what astronomy means. You can correct me in the comments. And Izuku says, "Oh, that was so simple." And the point of phase 2 was to make sure no one was overthinking it, because they don't want people overthinking situations as a hero. As Izuku types into the keypad, sun and moon, as it shows a check mark, and the box opens, showing the final part of it. It was, let me think. Okay, it was a hero quiz to see if through their lifetime they had gathered at least a little knowledge. It said something like, how many people have became the number 1 hero? As Izuku says, "Oh, that's easy," as he types in, let's say, 41, and gets it right and says, "Let's go," as he reaches in to the final, through the final phase of the box, and picks up his amulet, and throws his hand up, and shows the amulet to President Mike, and President Mike says, "Good job, kid. You're the first one to pass phase 1 of the exam. Well, please wait in the corner." As Izuku said, oh, okay. As a couple kids had slowly gotten it also. And Izuku was quite happy with how quickly he was able to get it. And I will be trying for an hour, maybe, if we can, guys, because I want to start raising. Why did I say uppening? That's not even a word. Raising the duration of my videos to back to 20 minutes, like I used to at least, or maybe 30 minutes, or an hour, if it's what I do. Yeah. So ask what you guys want me to do in the comments. I don't know. So, Izuku waits in the corner, and after a long time, people like Katsuki. Why am I saying Katsuki? I just need to say Bakugo. As people like Bakugo and Ida and the smarter people get it. And after a couple more hours, the people with strong quirks and... Oh, sorry, guys. The people with quirks that were quite useful did eventually get it. But, as President Mike says, time's up, and a little less than half of the kids were eliminated by that. One kid was still on phase 1, not being able to see the hidden lever or whatever. As President Mike walked them all to phase 2. But like in Hunter x Hunter, it was a long run. Well, more so jog. But not nearly to the length. They ran 5 kilometers. Which, that might be that probably is a long distance. I don't know. But it sounds like it. So, after they had dropped at least half of the participants already from what the pool was before, it's only a handful of kids for about, let's say, 8 classes of UA students. And they needed to narrow it down to 3. So, President Mike says, well, welcome to phase 2, as Aizawa is waiting for them and says, okay. Students, possible students, this will be phase 2. Dang, I forgot what I said phase 2 would be. I'll be right back, guys. I need to check. Hey guys, I found out it was the quirk evaluation thing. So, for those people who will yell at me in the comments because I forgot, and then because they didn't watch the rest of the video, yeah, shout out to y'all. So, yeah, continuing on. As Aizawa said, well, let's see, who will we be trying first? As all the students split up into three stations simultaneously. And they all begin doing their duration. So, for example, Shinso. They give him a requirement of 10 minutes with keeping someone brainwashed. As Aizawa says, well, go. As he says, you like jazz? And the guy says, yeah. As he gets brainwashed. As the timer starts. And 10 minutes later, Shinso, who is panting a lot, says, that's it, right? As the timer rings, and Aizawa says, yeah, you pass. Go to the check mark. As there'd already been a little line, as Izuku was called up. And Izuku says, okay, hello. As Aizawa says, yeah, right. Well, what's your quirk, kid? As Izuku says, my quirk is clone. I can clone myself as much as I can. As Aizawa said, what is your limit? As Izuku said, I would say it's around 400. As Aizawa was shocked and says, make 600. As Izuku's like, oh, okay. As he made his hand sign and said, clone. as hundreds and hundreds of Izuku clones crowd around them. And Izuku makes 607. And Aizawa says, fascinating, as he writes something down on Izuku's paper. And Izuku, Midoriya. Okay, you pass, kid. As Izuku walks into the line that had formed. And a couple minutes later, it was done. And half of the kids were gone once again. And Izuku said, the preliminaries would knock out a lot of people. As Aizawa looks on his list and says, okay, this is great. Well, students, you'll only need to win once to get into this final exam done. That's what you'll need to get into UA High School. Based on your performance is how we will judge you. As they walk over after a 10 kilometer run, which is probably a long time. 10 kilometers. So after they run, they actually get to 3.5 classes for, like A, B, and C. I'm pretty sure there is a C, possibly. So, as they all get in their fighting stance, Aizawa says, fine. As he gets off the phone and says, everyone in the circle. Everybody. As everybody quickly crowds in. And Aizawa says, well, I will be counting how many people get knocked out of this ring. You just have to be nobody out of the first... No, 1, 2... As he counts quickly and says, the first 8 people will be knocked out of Phase 3. If you can do that, well, great job. You will pass. As Izuku smiles to himself and says, this is the perfect exam for me. And, yeah, you can understand why he can make clones, guys. As Izuku hears as the bell rings, like in a wrestling match, and Izuku quickly jumps up and says, clones! As 10 of him cannonball into the crowd, as 3 people had already gone out from just all the punching that had been going around. As a kid with a wind quirk sent everybody flying, but one of the kid who was flying who had a barrier quirk blocked them all and saved basically everybody. Even Izuku hit the barrier as they all quickly get back in, and the wind kid is immediately punched out. As there had been 4 people who could get out now, Izuku jumps up once again and says, my last tactic didn't work. Take this. As he jumps high, very high in the air, and hundreds of clones in the air. 300, we'll say. And he sends all of them down in cannonballs. All at one person in a corner who had around 8 people surrounding him. And when all the clones hit them, they're all gone. As Aizawa had just decided, well, C can suffer, as those kids had all been eliminated. As he says, stop the fighting. And one kid who was about to fall takes a sigh of relief and says, thank you. And Aizawa says, well, we'll be tracking all of your progress through camera footage, and we will rank you into your classes as we see fit. Thank you for this. As Aizawa, 10 minutes later, comes back to the students who are all still sitting in the room and says, okay, everybody form a line. I have names of everybody here. Well, get in alphabetical order, and I'll direct you to what line you'll be lining up in. As everybody after that did that. And this was for like A, B, and C. And they were doing this so they could rank their students on who needed the least amount of help and who needed the most amount of help. So, they could make a balance system. And, yeah. As the weakest guy in C was obviously the weakest guy in school by far. He was a loser. And, okay, I'm just gonna ignore what I just saw. So, Izuku, was placed in Class A, obviously. And when they, went into their designated, room, Aizawa says, well, do the same thing y'all did before, but it'll be last man standing. As he smiles sadistically. And he says, well, go. As everyone in the circular arena starts fighting. And people keep in mind, guys, the recommendation students aren't here, so Todoroki and Momo aren't in here at all. So Izuku quickly makes around 30 of him, and he starts punching kids out quickly. Eventually, it was him, Bakugo, Ida, and who was a kid that was also, we'll say Kaminari, for no reason in particular at all. As all of them circle the ring, literally the circle, yeah, pretty self-explanatory there. As Izuku makes another 30 shadow clones and says, attack! As he makes 6 attack each of them, but he keeps 6 around him for protection. As Kaminari got knocked out because he tried to do the 1,000,000 volt thing, but one of the all 6 of these Izukus tackled him out. And yeah, that was that. But they were all out now, so yeah. And we'll say, just for special effects, when you landed out, you were quickly teleported to a distant room, which was the camera room, with a recovery girl watching, as she had everything recording also. So Izuku quickly looks at the remaining people with Bakugo, I think that Bakugo and Ida. As Bakugo thinks to himself, I can't win this. Stupid nerd. As Ida says, take this! And he uses all the speed he can muster at that time and speeds toward Izuku with a very flashy kick. But Izuku sacrifices one of his clones to take it to the neck and absolutely suffer. We all know how a throat hit hurts. Well, think again, because now you got a throat kick at 80 miles an hour. Just saying, that would hurt a lot. And yeah, probably getting hit like a car. So that clone dies, basically. And Izuku punches Ida into the ground then and throws him out with a clone helping him. As he looks at Bakugo and says, well, let's make the competition bigger again. As he puts his fingers together and says, ultimate move! As he crowds the entire arena, making around 500 clones. And they all start punching Bakugo. As Bakugo is so surrounded by the clones, he falls out of the arena because that's how much space they were taking up. He couldn't explode their corpses fast enough. And Izuku is declared the winner. Because, I mean, even if we're not giving him plot armor, Izuku's quirk slaps in that arena. I mean, if you think about it, if you just overload them, he will eventually fly out. I really don't know who would beat that. And, yeah. So, Izuku continues on with his day after that, going home extremely exhausted after using his new ultimate move, which he just called, okay. I just thought of a great name. No, it's not really great. Very much a copyright. Missile Barrage, because I'm not gonna include the two other words in front of it. And, yeah. Like Missile Barrage from Dragon Ball. If you guys were just wondering. Because you right. And Izuku went home happy that day, as Inko gets a text on her phone and is shocked and quickly runs to Izuku and says, "Izuku, you got into UA High School, and in fact, you were the strongest in the class." As Izuku is extremely happy and says, "Oh, that's cool, Ma." As Izuku's dad also peeks through the doorway and says, "Great job, kiddo. You'll be a great hero for this family." As he smiles, and Izuku says, "Thanks, Dad," as he sighs and smiles to them as they leave him alone. And Izuku thinks to himself how just great that situation had been. And, yeah. So, Izuku and then, well, think about it, we have 40, no, why did I say 40? 4 weeks left until UA High School's first day. So, Izuku walks outside the next day and says, "Let's do this," as he'd heard on the news that there had been a recent villain escapee from Tartarus escaping. So he wanted to test how strong he was. Not a good idea in the slightest, as he started walking over to relatively to where Tartarus was located, which would take hours to walk to, hours upon hours. As he's walking, he sees the villain that he was looking for fly past him, and Izuku immediately starts running as he sees All Might bolt past him and slam the villain to the ground. As All Might says, "Take this, you filthy villain," and he punches the villain. And as he's about to punch the villain says, "Shrink," as the villain quickly bounces out of the way and turns around and says, "Take this, you fake," as he presses a trigger on his gun and an electromagnetic pulse shoots its way towards All Might as All Might gets hit, who is trying to dodge. As All Might says, "You're rough," as he then collapses, falling back into his Small Might form. As the man says, "He was right. It is an anti-Quirk gun. So wait, you're All Might. Think of all the ransom money I could get. That would be billions upon billions of dollars." As he starts scheming to himself out loud, and Izuku says, "All Might, that was him?" As he sheds a tear, as the villain goes to pull out a gun towards All Might's head and gets his phone out. As Izuku says, "Clones!" as 600 clones immediately charge at the enemy, as the man quickly starts shooting all the Izuku's. But then he gets out his assault rifle, dropping his phone onto All Might, and starts laying it out with a very long magazine. Like it even wraps around the gun as he continues shooting all the Izuku's for one bullet each. But after 186 shots, the Izuku's are still charging. As he sees that he's down, says, "I'm so happy. This is my quirk." Okay, I have a good name. As Seizo Mitarashi. Quirk, infinite storage. He has a black hole type of storage, which it really just suspends stuff forever, basically in an infinite space. And it was basically an infinite backpack for him. As he quickly grabbed out a massive machine gun and starts spraying down all the Izukus as hard as he can. As Izuku gets a little worried and spawns 200 more, who went from the sides too, as the man says, what a bother, as he grabs another minigun and shoots from left to middle and right to middle, and continues shooting that way. He did lose a couple bullets from when it was in the middle of the left side and the middle army. I think we're at 45 minutes. So, as Izuku continues trying to hit the man, he got one clone behind the man who hit him in the back of the head with a knee, as the man falls on his face and says, "Dang it," as 10 clones had jumped towards his direction, as he sends a grenade right on himself. But he kicks it up in the air and shoots it, as it makes a massive explosion, but he covers himself with the machine gun. And the machine gun, luckily enough, took all the shrapnel, which was still really close to him, but he did take one to the leg. As he gets up and says, "That was too close," as they had wiped out 100 Izuku clones, as they're still charging at him. And he continues shooting them, as Izuku says, "Why has no one joined yet?" As he's about to pass out from all the clones he had summoned. As he says, "This'll win me the match," as he starts weaving hand signs for his ultimate move and says, "Missile barrage," as he had modified it to where it would spawn clones in the sky, and 1,000 clones suddenly appeared and charged at him from the sky, as the villain said, "Oh crap," as he suddenly tackled to the ground and almost suffocating, as he continued shooting minigun shots right above him. But more Izukus piled onto him. And, as you would know, he eventually ran out of ammo in his 2 miniguns. As only 10 Izukus from all of the army, even the extra 800, were still there. And they quickly knocked the man unconscious after a brutal beating. As he looks at the gun that housed All Might's quirk, as it said OFA, as Izuku said, "Odd. That's a good name. OFA. I wonder what it means. All Might's quirk." Whatever. As it said release, and he shot the gun, as it released the quirk, and it shot out and hit All Might. As All Might returned back to Big All Might, except he had recovered a lot from what Izuku did. Getting one for all once again restored it a lot, because he was using the embers. But considering the gun still saw the quirk one for all in it, because it had all the essence of it, just the dying embers of it, he gave it half the power, because the gun, it was a big gun, guys, okay, like a machine gun size, and it replenished the power of it, we'll say. And All Might got back up and said, "What the? There's as he checks his chest and sees it had healed a lot. And he even got some of his digestive system back. And he was quite happy about it because he could barely eat now. So he was happy about that. And he looks to the kid who had passed out. And All Might says, "Thank you, kid, so much," as he recognized him from the beach. And he laid a card down, which had a lot of money for it, and a location to see if they want to train sometime. And he quickly went to tell Night-Eye and Mirio, who were on patrol at that time. And Night-Eye was shocked, because now All Might and Mirio could be technical users of One for All, except All Might's One for All would be significantly weaker. But being One for All still, it would gather strength as it matured. So it was kind of like a restart, which was good. And yeah, so Izuku went home that day extremely happy, and having 29 days left till 29 days left till UA, his first day, sighs to himself and says, "What to do now?" Well, actually, as he looks at the time and says, "Time to go to bed, I guess," as he falls asleep. And, this was kind of like his month, almost. He went on a lot of journeys. In fact, we'll address his next journey right now. As he got up that day, he turned on the news to see local prison riot broke out of prison. The riot itself got out of prison and was now ravaging through his city. As Izuku said, "This month is going to be awfully long," as he quickly jumped outside after taking a shower and everything, and saying goodbye to his mom and dad, Hisashi and Inko, and quickly ran there. Using a new technique he learned to transform his clone's matter into a vehicle, as he drove with his now Izukified license and motorcycle, as he eventually, a couple minutes later, arrived at the city to see the riot, and he makes a couple clones to help him. Actually, by a couple, I mean 100, as he confronts the riot, as their ringleader, Muscular, says, "I will not be detained again," as he charges himself up, and everyone else unleashes their quirk, and they start attacking. And Izuku his clones are getting pummeled by Muscular, as he has to constantly unleash more. As Izuku's clones are eventually dissipated after summoning 400 extra, Izuku gets punched all the way into a building, as Aizawa sees a man in front of him as he opens his eyes. Why did I say Aizawa? Izuku sees a man in front of him, and it was President Mike and Aizawa, as Aizawa says, "We can't get any normal lunch breaks anymore, or naps for that matter." As President Mike said, "You said it, buddy," as they start attacking the riot. But Muscular powers through while Aizawa had blinked. He punches Aizawa through the building Izuku was hit into. As Izuku gets up and says, "I can still fight," as he says, "Army Jutsu." And he was calling it jutsu now just to be fancy. As he placed his hand on the ground and he let out a huge scream, 2,000 clones appeared, and Izuku immediately fell unconscious, and his final breath from before losing consciousness was, attack as he fell onto the ground, unconscious. And Izuku, as he fell over, I better be recording. I swear to. Okay. Thank everything that I'm recording. And good. Okay. So as Izuku looks at the villains after summoning his army, well, no, he's unconscious, as all the entire army starts attacking the small riot of 150 escaped convicts, especially Muscular. As Aizawa had been hit through the building, he was still recovering because you'd imagine, that hurt. Dang, we're about to hit an hour, peoples. That's kind of like it's kind of my goal. And, yeah. So, as Deku looks over towards, Aizawa, as Aizawa is trying to get up, and Izuku. Why do I keep forgetting the fact that Izuku is unconscious? As the clones begin fighting the prison riot. And Muscular could quickly dissipate them, but President Mike could only do so much. As the clones quickly started attacking the riot. And he'd actually eliminated 100 of them by now. But the stronger ones still remained. And eventually, the numbers were cut down to 1,000. But theirs was 25, 10, 500, and eventually 1, with 10 Izuku clones and the original now have woken up, and Aizawa and President Mike next to him, as the fight had gone through hours. And President Mike says, "This is a rough fight, kid. Wonder why you would take something like this on." And Aizawa says, "He's clearly crazy." As Izuku said, "Yeah, I guess I am." As Muscular, who is also panting, tells himself that he won't lose here, and covers his entire body in muscle fibers, and jumps in front of them. And Izuku, not having seen this, was hit in the stomach. As Izuku spats out a massive amount of blood, he's sent through 4 buildings and eventually crashes through one. As Izuku looks over towards the man, and you can barely see him, Izuku said, "I'm weak, I guess," as he makes his hand as fast as he can. Says, "Shadow clone," as he touches his hand onto the ground. His 300 go over, and he says, "Attack," as he's struggling to get up now. And they quickly run towards Muscular, as Muscular gets annoyed being done with this kid, basically. We're so close to an hour, peeps. It's like a countdown. And, yeah. So, Izuku gets kicked in the side, having gone back to where Muscular was, and saw President Mike unconscious, next to a building. But Endeavor had arrived, as he sends a massive fire shot at Muscular. And Muscular said, "I'm so happy I went to the boss man before this," as he takes in all of the fire with his new quirk called Fire Absorb. He absorbs fire and converts into energy. And Izuku says, "No way," as that was a flash fire fist, by the way, as he absorbed it all. And Muscular was completely replenished. And All Might and Mirio then arrived. And Izuku says, "They're here," as All Might and Mirio says, "We are here," as they quickly launch towards Muscular. And Muscular gets pummeled by All Might and Mirio together. Mirio had learned around 15% by now. And yeah. We are at an hour officially. As after a long, fructuous fight, Endeavor looks to All Might as All Might kicks Muscular through a building. And both Mirio and All Might get in front of Muscular as Mirio kicks him with full power of One for All, breaking his toes into right into All Might's Delaware Smash. And yeah, as Muscular gets hit as hard as they could through the ground, basically just smacking him onto the concrete. And yeah, he loses that. And yeah, that, people, is where we'll be leaving off on What If Deku Had a Shadow Clone Quirk, Part 1. And this is Keto, signing off. Goodbye. Come on, video. Okay, good. Yeah, so, yeah, this is Keto signing off once again. Goodbye. No. Okay. Well, everybody, today we are doing What If Deku Had a Shadow Clone Quirk, Part 2. Thank you for the support on, Part 1. Thank you to the one person who did. This, I have to admit, guys, I have lost a lot of viewers, I feel. And odds are, most of the people who do watch my videos immediately are probably notifications. So thank you to them. And even then, our average view time is 8 minutes. And it's hard, guys, when your videos are an hour and they watch 8 minutes of it. If you guys lose interest, well, say, like, do another what if in the comments. I won't take it personally, because you could recommend something. If you want me to do that, I will. I could do a Naruto what if or My Hero. And if you really want me to, I can try and get a new anime. But it has to be something that's not like One Piece, where it's still going and we're going to hit 1,000 episodes soon. We're not doing that. So yes. Yeah, that's all I have to say. So, onto the video. Okay, everybody. So, we continue off as Izuku gets rid of the 28 days because, I'm gonna be dead honest with y'all, that was filler. And, yeah, that's it. I'm sorry for yelling. Anyway, so, Deku, the very day that UA starts, he gets out of bed, gets dressed, takes a shower, all that jazz. And as he's walking out, he greets his mother and his father. Y'all can't ship him now. He's not a fatherless child. He's not a shonen protagonist anymore, by the way. He's a father. If y'all were still wondering. Anyway, yeah, so Deku, as he runs towards UA, because he notices that he only has 5 minutes. And yeah, he quickly arrives at the gate. And as he's rushing in, he trips. And he is actually caught by someone's quirk. As he looks over, and it's the girl the other day who tried to do the exact same thing. Except she actually did it this time. So he looks to her and says, "Oh, do I know you?" As she says, "Oh, yeah. We were in the exact same scenario before, 30 days ago." As he says, "Oh, right, you're the brunette." And she says, "Happy to be called that. Anyway, we should be getting to class soon. We're late. As he says, oh, great. As she drops him quickly and bolts into the building, as he quickly follows behind her. Little did Izuku know, that was not a good idea. As he follows her into the building. But he quickly notices this is not what he expected at all, as he sees lockers all across the walls. And then they quickly arrive at the 1A room. And as they jump in, he notices there's just a chair in the middle. As she says, oh, I guess the teacher didn't set anything up. Weird. As she says, well, take a seat. As he says, oh, okay. As he quickly takes a seat. As he blinks, and after that, he gets quickly tied to the chair. And says, what's happening? As he quickly looks over towards his side and sees the girl. And she says, this is such a useful quirk for trapping young children like you. As Izuku realizes how late he'll be. And she says, well, you can't do anything now. As she grabs a knife from a tray. And she says, I'll start with your nails. Don't worry. It'll be quick. No, it won't, actually. It'll be slow and painful. I can't wait to see this feeling again. As the blonde, who quickly unveiled her skin, said, I can't wait to see you bleed. As she said that blissfully, looking like a schoolgirl. As Izuku says, no. Oh, what a horrible day to start off with. As he nudged his fingers together and said, clone! As 10 clones appear around him and they start trying to fight the girl. But with her superior knife skills in every way, she eliminates all of them. And she says, can't let that happen. As she says, well, I'm sorry, kid, but you'll have to lose those hands of yours. As he says, no, this is not happening today. As he claps his hands together and makes 100 in the big room, which it was like a cafeteria sized. And she says, oh, well, I'm happy I have this machine, as it says, it says teleporter, and she presses on it, and looks like, and him, Mr. Twice, as she presses the button, and Twice quickly appears and says, what is it, Toga? Oh, you got one, good job. Of course, I'm here. Oh, sorry guys. As he says, what do you need my help with? And she says, well, Mr. Twice, I just wanted to know if you'd help me restrain him. He has a clone quirk similar to yours. And he says, oh, okay, Toga-chan. As he says, whatever. Because, split personality. And he walks over to Izuku and kicks him in the face. As Izuku takes it and says, fine. Clone. As he spawns 700 around them. And Twice says, oh my. As he quickly starts multiplying in numbers, as he got to 60 before all Izuku's clones charged and quickly dispelled all of them. With their immense physical strength and urgency to get to class, Izuku quickly fought the villain and even pinned down the original and unveiled his mask and beat him ruthlessly. As Himiko was also pinned to the wall and they knocked her out. And as one of the clones of Twice was reaching for the teleport button for somebody, like Kirigiri, one of Izuku's clone roundhouse kicks him in the back of the skull, knocking him out. As Izuku gets his clones to untie him, and he does as he gets out of the building, and notices it was right next to Yue, conveniently. As Izuku said, "Of course. I'm 15 minutes late." As he quickly runs into the class. Well, no, he quickly runs through the gate and gets through the doors. And eventually he finds his class, but no one's there. As it says, if anybody arrives, meet us at Training Ground A. As Izuku quickly runs out there. As Aizawa looks behind them and says, "Oh, you're that kid. Well, give me a good excuse. Why are you late?" As Izuku says, "Well, I was nearly killed." As all the students are shocked. And Bakugo says, "Luck will believe that, you nerd." As Izuku says, "I fought and defeated 2 villains. One was called Twice, and the other Toga, I think? Yeah, they're at the building over." As Aizawa says, "Kid, there is no building over." As Izuku is shocked, and Aizawa said, "You must be seeing things, kid. Don't lie to me. What actually happened?" As Izuku says, "No, I'm not joking. There was an actual school there. It could have been someone's quirk, I know that, but it looked so much like UA from the map I got." And Aizawa said, "Fine. Well, just come with us. We're doing a physical exam." As all the students are acceptant of that. As Izuku follows the boys of the group. And they lead him into a locker room where Izuku sees his name on one of the lockers and opens it to find his uniform. As he puts all that on, and he goes outside to see his teacher. Okay. And yeah, Izuku quickly looks over to Aizawa and asks, "So, sir, what will we be doing today?" As Aizawa says, "Well, problem child, we will be doing a physical exam, as I said. Since you did get a ton of points, to be fair, in our exam, and you were the most proficient in your ability for your quirk, and you were ranked number 1, I will allow you to go first in each of these exams. It'll be going from strongest to weakest in order. Students, if you remember from the exam, if you were the first one out, well, I'm sorry to say it to you, you'll be last for all of these, and you'll be gaining the most amount of attention because you need the most help." As Izuku smiles and says, "Well, happy to know. I'm the strongest." As Bakugo was angered at that. But, he was second, so he was just a little more tolerant of it. So, as Izuku got up to the line, he gets 10 clones around him, as they all grab his arm, and as Izuku reels back, they follow it, and they all combine. Actually, no. As Izuku was about to throw it, he steps back quickly and says, "Sorry, I forgot I could do this." As he says, "Ultimate move, Army, Jutsu, Super." As 2,000 clones around him appear. As Aizawa says, "What are you doing, kid?" As they all form into one, and then it fuses into Izuku. As Izuku says, "Already." As he throws his arm back and throws the ball as far as he could. And as Aizawa sees the ball quickly disappear, he looks at his meter and says, "Wow, that's shocking. Well, I can see it since you are clearly physically gifted, along with that being 2,000 of you in one. Well, I'm happy to say your distance was a whopping 5,824 meters, as everyone is immensely shocked, as Izuku says, that's awesome. And quickly, his power dispels from his right arm, and he collapses to the ground and says, I'm fine, as he goes to the back of the line and sits on the ground. And, you know, he kind of did amazing. But after everybody does go, along with Bakugo, who got the same exact margin, he watches as the brunette, quote-unquote, he saw earlier, throws the ball. Quite lightly, it looked like. But as the ball goes around 8 meters, it starts floating. And they notice it goes just too far. And Izuku can't even see it anymore. As Aizawa looks down and says, well, that's shocking. Infinity. As they're all shocked, and Bakugo says, how did she get infinity? As Aizawa says, well, it's in space, is why. As she says, release. As they see a little, star come in the sky. But it quickly dissipates because it was actually the baseball. But, you know, fire coming into the atmosphere, all that. Yeah. Be right back, guys. Okay, as I was saying, yeah, well, that's basically it. As Uraraka walks back and smiles at Deku, as Deku looks at her cautiously and walks over and says, and are you sure you're actually Ochaku Uraraka? As she says, yeah, why? As he says, well, the girl I was talking to, well, the villain I ran into earlier, actually had your... No. She could replicate appearances, it looked like. And it looked exactly like you. Which is weird. But I just hope we can get on the right foot. As he smiles at her and she blushes a little and says, yeah. And yeah, that's how the rest of the exam goes as it would. But as we get to the second part of the exam, as Aizawa says, well, for phase 2 of our physical exam, we'll be seeing endurance. As everyone frowns and Izuku says, so what do you mean by that? As Aizawa says, well, run with me. As they go into a tunnel as they start running. And it's similar to the Hunter x Hunter tunnel. As Izuku smiles because endurance was his thing. Because when he spawned a clone, it was not tired at all. It would completely replenish stamina. And with the learn, and with the move he learned on one of the last days, he was happy because he could just combine one clone into him, and he'd be fine. So he would run full speed, and he'd be right next to Aizawa the whole time. So, as they quickly clear one kilometer, they start running faster, as Aizawa slowly picks up the speed. And after 5 kilometers, lots of people start dropping. Like, people like Mina, Aoyama, and, Higakure. And, you know, as people like that slowly drop, all the weaker ones do. And now it's the people who actually trained. And once they hit 20 kilometers, Bakugo, drops out, and Momo. And also, as they hit 30, Shoto gets out, because that's how tired he was. But now it's just him and Ida. Because, Ida has a speed quirk. You'd imagine he'd be pretty good at this. So, Aizawa says, well, you two, I'll meet you there. Whoever gets there first, you'll have half the homework today. But double the training. As Izuku smiles with glee, as he wanted to get a lot stronger. So, Izuku quickly takes 10 clones into himself and bolts, basically. But Ida says this is too easy, as he quickly uses his engine burst. Not recipro burst, just, normal engine speed. As he quickly zooms past Izuku, and Aizawa starts seriously running. And once Ida gets to 70 kilometers of 80, his engines tire out, and he falls onto the ground as he sees a massive flight of stairs. As he says, no. And, that. So as there had been a car following them who had slowly gathered people, and the car had stayed next to Aizawa. And as Ida starts climbing, at 75, he passes out. But Izuku, running as fast as he could, eventually gets to 80. With his full endurance, his full stamina still there, as he puts another clone into him, replenishing his energy, and passes the finish line. And after 2 hours, Aizawa, with the car, arrives. With everyone else on the car. Well, no, like in and on it, literally. As Aizawa says, dang, you have some stamina, kid. You're not even trying to catch your breath. That was 80 kilometers. That's a lot of miles, Mike. That's a lot of miles, kid. As Izuku smiles and says, yep, my quirk allowed me to make a clone, and since that clone has replenished energy, I would just fuse it into myself. And I have to do that a lot, so I ended up using around 700 clones today in this run alone. As Aizawa says, oh my, good job, kid. That takes a lot of guts. And a whole lot of endurance. I'm proud of you. As he smiles. As Izuku says, thank you. And Mita gets off the car and says, how? I gave up after 5 kilometers. And yet you are here unscathed at 80. I wonder if you could go to 100. As Izuku says, I don't know about that. I was already close to my limit at clones. And she says, oh, bummer. And yeah. So, the very next day, Aizawa and everybody arrive at school. And, as usual. So, Izuku quickly looks over towards his newfound friend, Ochako Uraraka, and Tenya Ida, because they seem to bond over hero training and, just basic hero stuff. Like, they were all just really nice people also. So, as they're all talking, Ochako actually reveals that she wanted to be a hero for the money, but not, just for themselves, but so she could support her parents with money. And Izuku thought that was fine because, it was for her parents. She did have a actual reason. Unlike some people, though. And, so this class, though, to Aizawa, was different. No one was clearly greedy. But, there was people like Sero and Denki that were stupid. Completely. And people like Bakugo who got mad all the time for almost no reason at all. But Aizawa would mold and groom these kids to become just the best pro heroes they could be. But there were some students he had absolutely no hope in. People like Minoru Mineta, as he looks at the file, and Toru Hagakure, as he had the most confidence in the 1 and 2, as you'd imagine. Izuku Midoriya and Shoto Todoroki, as after the endurance test, 10 whole kilometers was a lot more endurance than another person's, because that could mean the difference in chasing a villain down, a dangerous one. So, as this is happening, Bakugo in the other room is sizzling. He's absolutely furious that his teacher thinks what's his name? How did I forget Bakugo's name for Todoroki? I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Was it half hot? No, it wasn't half hot, half cold. It was half and half, I think. Please correct me in the comments. I have no idea. This is one of the few times I actually want to be corrected. So, Izuku and everybody arrive at class. But as Aizawa had still not shown up, they were getting a little worried. But that's when they hear a massive march through the halls as All Might arrives through the door saying, "I'm coming through the door like a normal person." And everyone is shocked, like, "Oh my gosh, is that All Might?" As Izuku is just flabbergasted, like, "Oh my gosh, it's All Might. And he'll be training us," it looks like. As All Might says, "Well, everybody, today we'll be doing hero versus villains training, and I'll be taking over for your teacher today. Well, let me get to know your names," as everyone says it, but when it gets to Izuku, as Izuku says his name, All Might gets shocked because he was the kid that brought back his part of One for All. And he knew this, so, you'd imagine special treatment and special training. Not in that way, not in that way. So, let me check how long we've been recording. We've hit 27 minutes, quite happy. Probably not exactly 27, but something close to that. Anyway, so as Izuku and everyone get into their hero costumes as All Might had instructed, Izuku's, by the way, guys, had been a quite stretchy tracksuit for clones, and it was good for endurance. It wasn't the normal tracksuit that Inko wore because Izuku simply didn't have it made, because if he did, I wouldn't want him to wear it because it is absolutely horrendous. Just saying, it looks exactly like All Might. And how did Inko make that? I want to know. How did Inko make that? It's odd. Anyway. So, as All Might starts talking, "Well, students, as you are all in your great hero costumes, I do want to say, for the hero versus villains training, to decide teams, we will be pooling..." I forgot what it's called. I'm sorry. There's so many specific things in the story I am forgetting. Well, they were drawing something, guys. They were drawing balls from like a thing. Please, once again, tell me. Please. Anyway, so as Izuku draws his, he gets F. As Uraraka was looking around and asking people if they had gone F, as she goes over to him and said, "Do you have Team F?" As he nods, and she says, "Oh, okay. That's Great, because you're the strongest, right? As Izuku says, yeah, but you're the 7th. As she says, wait, how do you know that? As Izuku says, what do you mean, how? Aizawa announced it. As she says, oh, right, I forgot. As Izuku says, wait, how could you forget? I mean, yes, for me it's quite simple. I'm number 1. But even people like Mina remember that she got 14th. Like, wait a minute. As Uraka says, what is it? As Izuku says, you're her. As Uraka freezes, revealing half of a face of Toga. As Uraka, quote-unquote, tackles Izuku to the ground. As Deku says, take this, as he uppercuts her. As All Might notices and says, chill down, kids, please. As Izuku says, she's a villain. As he kicks her in the stomach, revealing Toga. And I just realized. We're going to assume she did have clothes on the other time. I gave some bad imagery there. Just realized. So, as Himiko says, well, at least I'm cooler now. As All Might quickly rushes up to her, and as he's about to hit her, she responds with a portal suddenly, and as his Detroit Smash hits him in the gut. As Himiko says, I'm so happy I got these new quirks from the boss man. As she even had dark blue spots appearing on her skin as like early signs of potential Nomu. But we're not going to do that because we don't need to. I mean, after all, guys, Izuku's going to have 7 quirks soon in the manga. Spoiler warning. And you see, he's doing it fine. So, Izuku and All Might start fighting Himiko, along with the rest of the class, as she steps back and says, I'm so happy I have this power, as she makes black lightning and shocks Toru, as she gets electrocuted and falls to the ground, completely paralyzed everywhere. As she falls to the ground, all of her clothes were fried, and she's completely invisible now. No one can see her, and she's paralyzed. Not some great addition. So, yeah. And as someone tries to pick her up, no one can find her. As the spot where she was standing, just no one could find her. And as Himiko starts trying to shock people, All Might gets in the way of one hitting Izuku, as All Might gets shocked with it and gets blown back into a building, and he starts coughing out blood and says, that was rough. One for all, 100%, as he powers up fully, as Izuku could feel the sheer pressure of his strength at that time, as Himiko says, I just feel I shouldn't have this power. But why not? As she makes one massive bolt of lightning and shoots it at All Might. But as All Might tries to catch it, it goes through his hand, and his entirety of his insides get electrocuted with all the force of the lightning. As All Might nearly explodes, he does explode in a corpse, a bloody corpse, as all the students scream, as Izuku also does, and he closes his eyes, but when he opens them, he wakes up and says, where am I? I was just there. What is happening? I don't understand. As the girl from earlier just says, I love this new quirk. I'm so happy Boss Man gave me the quirk. Genjutsu. As you guys should know what that does. Or if you don't, what it does is it creates an illusion. And the person, if it's a high enough quality, won't even recognize that it is one. And Izuku says, You're her. How dare you kill All Might? As she's interested in what kind of genjutsu he saw. As he makes 200 clones and they absolutely beat her to a pulp. But Izuku was bloodied with tons of stab marks that had slowly healed. As he had no reaction, but he then winces out in pain as there was 30 knives lodged into his back as he falls to the ground quickly. As the police arrive shortly after that to find a unconscious schoolgirl along with Izuku with 30 knives in his back, unconscious, with blood pouring out slowly. And when he wakes up in a hospital, as a recovery girl was there. As she says, You're awake? Oh my. You're very lucky to be alive, sir. You should have died easily. There was 30 knives lodged very far into your back. In fact, one of your lungs had even been pierced. You're super lucky. Well, now you just have to recover. As Izuku winces out in pain as he tries to move his arms, as he makes 10 clones around him, and they all fuse into him, making their recovered state into him. As he says, oh, that feels a lot better. As he rips all the stuff out, crying out in agony, as he rips out the needle. As one of the nurses says, What is it? As Izuku quickly puts another clone into him and says, Relax. I have a quirk that helps me heal. And she's, oh, okay. Well, I guess you can be on your way, sir. But your parents are in the lobby, so you should greet them. And they did tell me your first day of UA high school is tomorrow. Good job on that. As Izuku says, First day? What? But I had already done it. As she says, Oh, so the doctor was right. As the nurse says that and walks away. As little did Izuku know, that was also a villain. And, in fact, the copy gun I told you about early in the story, yesterday, Izuku actually, didn't notice that during the genjutsu, she shot him with that gun, and she had injected herself with that quirk. But she dressed up well enough to get one of the nurses' blood, and you see, that was her Himiko, the real version. The clone, one of the clones, was in the hospital still. But when she is supposed to get arrested, puffs into smoke. As Izuku is told this by the guy at the front desk. And as Izuku said, oh my, that's a lot to take in. She had a copy quirk. I'll find her. As he starts running and sees his family, but then he bumps into the nurse. As the blood at that same time ran out, as it reveals Himiko again. But as she's about to put him under a genjutsu, with his strongest kick ever, knocks her out in one kick to the side of the head. As she falls onto the ground, the cops quickly run over and says, Stand down, as Izuku steps back as she's arrested. And as she's unconscious, she's taken into a police car and sent to Tartarus, where the cops just... She didn't have time to do anything because all her quirks are canceled by the quirk canceling handcuffs. Okay. We are at 40 minutes, which is amazing, people. Good job. Yeah. So, we have 20 more minutes. The, recovery arc, as I'll call it. As Bakugo arrives at the lobby too and says, I was worried about you, stupid Deku. Don't make me do it again. As Izuku chuckles as Hisashi and Inko quickly run up to Izuku and hug him. As Izuku says, don't worry, I'm fine, Mom. And she says, you better be, Izuku. Don't scare me like that again. As Izuku says, yeah. And, that's like the end of the Chronicles of Himiko. I'm sorry for making such a underwhelming character strong, but, she kind of has the perfect quirk for it. Shape-shifting and, cloning. That's, like, the perfect combination, guys. Just saying. So, yeah. After that, he's discharged for 7 days. And after the first day, he just goes to UA. And the same exact thing happens. He has the same interactions, which he feels is weird. And the same thing for the next day. But then, where they had met Himiko, as Izuku tries to sucker punch Uraraka, Uraraka catches it and says, what are you trying to do? As he says, I'm testing, as he kicks her in the face, and nothing falls off, and she says, that hurt. And Izuku says, okay, good. You're not her. As All Might comes over to them and says, is there something wrong here? As Izuku says, no, something happened when I was in the hospital yesterday. As All Might says, well, if you could, share to the class. As he says, oh, okay. Well, yesterday, when I was on my way to the first day of UA High School, well, at least that's what I thought. I was actually wrong, but I ran into a replica of the high school that was under someone's control. And little did I know, when I went into a chair that was guided to me by a girl that looks similar to the brunette that I punched. Sorry. Well, she quickly disheveled her skin, and it was revealed to be a psychopath in a schoolgirl outfit who was arrested yesterday also. I made sure of it. Well, she tortured me, but I never knew it because she put me under something called a genjutsu. And I played these exact moments from yesterday all up to now and today. And when I finally got out of that, well, I was nearly dead. I had 30 knives lodged in my back. Far. I should be dead. Very dead. But my recovery quirk, well, my clone quirk, helped me survive. But I don't trust you anymore, as he points to Uraraka. And she says, understood. I'm accepting of that now because the fact that that's happened to you twice now, correct? As Izuku says, what do you mean no. As All Might says, what is it? As Izuku said, this only happened once. What do you mean twice? As Uraraka smirks, and Izuku then wakes up from his dream. and he was sleeping. In fact, he had slept through the entire first half of the second day. As Izuku says, I am not doing that again. Why is my day restarting? As Inko is shaking his bed violently and says, Izuku, wake up! As he looks to her and says, what is it? As she says, half of your second day at UA High School has been slept through. Get there now. As he says, understood, ma'am, as he quickly runs his way towards UA High School, making sure it was actually UA. And arrives outside to where his entire class was. And All Might says, well, you're not late. Good. Well, time to draw lots. Yeah, I just remembered it on the spot. Time to draw lots to see who you'll be facing. Well, I guess you'll be on Team F, young Midoriya. As Izuku says, oh, okay. And Izuku was very cautious of the brunette now. So cautious. He didn't trust her in the slightest anymore. Any trust left evaporated. So, when they got into the building, finally after the countdown, and they were facing Ida and Bakugo. Ida Tenya and Bakugo Katsuki. Katsuki Bakugo. So, as they start walking down the corridor, Bakugo quickly rushes towards them, along with Ida under him, as Bakugo and Ida pincer him with a upper axe kick and a axe kick itself into Izuku, as Izuku falls to the ground, wincing in pain at his jaw and forehead, as Uraraka is kicked in the side by Ida, as she flies into a wall, as Izuku takes a glance to see if she was Himiko, but she wasn't, and Himiko had just never seen him. She was still with the League, not in Tartarus, but never seen Izuku. So, Izuku looks over towards Bakugo and says, I'm tired of playing nice today, as he spawns 1,000 clones and says, Army Expansion Jutsu, as it turns into 10,000, as they quickly touch the bomb, as Izuku and the other Izukus tackle the two to the ground quickly, around 10 for each, as Bakugo tried getting up with his explosion quirk, but another 10 piled on him. Yeah, they fell unconscious from being smothered almost. And that was a rough second day, okay? I'm just saying. That was like the worst possible second day one man could have. Don't worry, the rest went the same. And I will dip into into day 3 just a little, because I do want to save some of you, SJ, for part 3, because I'm going to try and fit it into 5 total parts, but I will see if I can get the USJ done also, because I do want to, because, you know, that'll be season 1 fully done from part 1 and 2, and then we can address season 2, which is all of the internship and the sports festival for episode 3. Episode 4 will be season 3 with summer training camp and all for one arc, and probably a lot more in there, along with in part 3s. And in part 5 we'll be addressing season 4, and probably being a lot shorter of a video, honestly. Yeah. I do just want to pull out that message. Okay, we're at 48 minutes. I'm getting kind of sad now, because I have to extend this enough towards 60 minutes, an hour, because looks good for the YouTube algorithm, and hopefully, which is my dream on YouTube, to finally be one of the people recommended in when you search up What If Deku. I want to be at the top of that someday. Get a good hit. But alas, I can't. I mean, it sucks, but everyone has their times of glory. And clearly on TikTok was my time of glory, sadly. If you guys want that, look at my About section on my channel. You'll see my link to TikTok. Anyways, back onto the What If. As Izuku wakes up the next day and checks the calendar and it says, finally, day 3 of UA High School. And Izuku gets dressed and all that, as usual, and walks to UA, exactly where it should be. Still not trusting the brunette at all. In fact, he kind of hated her, giving so many bad memories yesterday. So, when he arrives, he's greeted by Uraraka and Ida, who considered him a nice person, as Izuku just said, "Get away from me, brunette." As Uraraka, who he told the story to, understood, and kept her distance too, because he clearly didn't trust her in the slightest at all, because he'd been bamboozled 3 or 4 times yesterday by Uraraka, turning out to be Himiko Toga. So, as Izuku and his friends finally, arrive at the class, Aizawa says, "Well, today, students, we'll be going to that field trip I told you about on day 1. Well, at least the people who weren't 15 minutes late," as he looks at Izuku and glares. As Izuku says, sorry. I got caught off guard, okay? I didn't realize that I would be attacked. Wait a minute. Yeah. I'm sorry. And do keep in mind, guys, day 1 did actually happen, but Himiko escaped. So whatever I said about them never meeting, they very much did. And Uraraka was on guard too, because she didn't want her blood being stolen. Don't ask how she knows. She just does. So yeah. And as Izuku and everybody shuffled onto the bus, and as they start their slow drive towards the USJ Unforeseen Simulation Joint. I'm sorry, guys. I'm trying to extend it. It's hard, but for the YouTube algorithm. Thank you to everyone who thinks I'm the comfort streamer, by the way. I don't think so. I'm very sleep deprived right now, and quite bored. Enough of my ranting. As Suyu starts discussing quirks with everybody, and as they share stories around, she says, "Well, I could never see Bakugo becoming a top hero. After all, he'd have no fans at all." As Bakugo pipes him and says, "What do you say about me, frog?" As she says, "I know what I said. Especially the number 1 hero. People would hate you. You'd basically yell at your fans and curse at them. Not good for the younger ones." As he just looks away and says, "Whatever." As she then looks at Izuku and says, "But that clone quirk of yours, Izuku, is very awesome. It has so many uses, too. You can replenish almost anything. So you could survive without food forever." As Izuku said, "Yeah, I could even reduce age of my clones so I could younger myself. Or even deepen my age." As Suyu looks shocked and says, That is very handy. As then they arrive at the USJ. As Izuku smiles and says, huh, that took so long. And yeah, so when Aizawa gets them all to shuffle off of the bus finally. Oh, fine, I will check. 54 minutes, let's go. I can't wait for me to be at like 59:25. That'll just hurt me. That's gonna hurt me so hard. I'm sorry, guys. So, Izuku and everyone shuffle off the bus, and 13 then introduces herself, and everyone's like, oh my gosh, that's a rescue hero, 13. And Uraka especially geeks out about this because she always wanted to be a rescue hero. Yeah, it was like her thing. So, as 13 says, well, at the Unforeseen Simulation Joint, short for USJ, we'll be doing rescue training, as you'd imagine, with me being here. As Aizawa says, well, 13, they're yours. Well, I'll take a coffee break. See you kids in a couple minutes. As he jumped off. As 13 says, that's a little, interesting. As they walk into the USJ. And as they all shuffle in, 13 says, oh, okay. So, now that you're all here, let's start. As they start walking down the stairs, as 13 then spots a purple portal in the middle. Except there was two. One was a black portal. Smiley face. As Izuku, shocked, says, wait a minute. I've seen a black portal before. That's him. That's as a man in a black suit walks out and says, all for one. As Izuku at the same time says it. And Izuku says, weren't we supposed to have All Might today also? As 13 says, oh yeah. As she touches the button for immediate help. As 13 sends that to All Might, and he gets in and says, what is it, 13? As 13 says, All for One is here and in front of the class right now. As All Might is shocked and immediately bolts and is immediately in front of the class. As All Might says, All for One. As All for One says, All Might. Well, happy to have such an easy way to defeat you now. I just have to use your students as bait. As the rest of his little army appears. The normal guys from the USJ attack with Shigaraki and the Nomu too, except there were a couple other Nomus that were, like, extremely similar to the other one. But one could fly, one could shapeshift also, but other than that, they had the same exact abilities. So there was two more. As All for One says, go my pets, attack! As all of them charge at All Might, and Izuku makes 100 clones to help All Might. And, those take out goons, and even takes out Shigaraki with 10 of them helping. And Shigaraki gets knocked down towards All for One's feet, unconscious, as he says, well, that pesky kid. As his, All for One, finger blades come out and destroy all the clones, as it's about to hit Izuku, but he pops a clone in front of it, and the clone takes the hole to the chest. As All Might is fighting all three Nomus, having a really hard time, but at the same time, definitely a better time, because, he actually has one for all, technically. Okay, we're at 58:35. This is like an ongoing journey. As All Might gets knocked back, and Izuku says, All Might! As All Might turns around, and Izuku sends 100 clones right in front of All Might, taking a massive punch from all three of them at the same time into them all. As the wind pressure had to be used as 100 meat shields of the clones for All Might. As All Might says, Thank you, kid. As Izuku says, yeah, as All for One kicks him straight through the glass. As Izuku was sent flying, and he had to use 10 clones to cushion his fall, splattering their lungs, basically. As Izuku lands unconscious in the middle of right outside the USJ. And as heroes were slowly arriving, they couldn't do much against the two Nomus that were guarding outside, along with Kirigiri. So as a police battalion arrives along with snipes and a couple more heroes, the students are cowering inside still, because they had to deal with a lot weaker Nomu, but one that could spawn others, but not like the one in Season 4. So All Might continues fighting all three, but then he uses United States to smash and hits one out and says, Finally, as he jumps back and they continue their assault. As Izuku eventually does get up after a couple minutes, barely, and walks back into the USJ, slipping past the Nomus. As Izuku looks at his classmates, who were bloodied and beaten, because one of the Nomus decided to fight the students instead of All Might. As this annoyed All for One, but All Might managed to defeat that Nomu that was just fighting against him. But all the students had nearly been all knocked unconscious, along with being bloodied and beaten up completely. And this saddened All Might dearly, as he immediately one-punched the Nomu out of the USJ. As Izuku says, That it? Take this! As 1,000 clones charge at All for One. As All for One is about to make a massive wind pressure blast, he's punched in the face by All Might into the clones as they all start to beat on All for One, but he quickly makes a shockwave around him. As Izuku smiles as he's knocked into the fountain, which was all the way down at the stairs, which they were fighting like right on the stairs. Keep that in mind. As Izuku is penetrated by the tip of the fountain. As Izuku says, Great, this again. As he quickly shakes himself off as he breaks off from the thing. Oh, okay. And, yeah. So, as Izuku quickly jumps back and says, Take this! Super Jutsu! As that, people, is where we'll be leaving off as, for like a cliffhanger. So, yeah. This is Keto signing off. Goodbye. Hello, peoples. I'm very sorry, guys, for not posting for 4 days. You see, I don't really have an excuse. I'm lazy. So yeah. Today we'll be doing What If Deku Had a Shadow Clone Quirk, Part 3. And I'm sorry, guys, once again. We might get the What If done in this one. I'm hoping that I can just stretch it long enough to where I can record the rest of the story. And I have made a lot of plot holes already. Too many. And I'm gonna try and see if I can fully nurture this story as long as I want to. Keep in mind, I do still cut off all my what ifs past the school festival arc, because season 5 is not done, and yeah, I'm gonna wait for that season to finish. Then I'll watch it like once or twice, and yeah, we'll do it from there. So, onto the video. Okay. So, we continue off the story, right as Deku shouts, "Super!" And he sees one massive clone appear, and that was of 2,000 clones. But, it took a lot out of him, so he immediately, dropped to the ground, gasping for breath, and the clone then starts trying to attack All For One, but All For One immediately blasts it back with a massive air pressure shot. And as all the clones disperse from it, Izuku slowly gets up and says, "Combine!" as all the clones are dragged from their position in the air and launched into Izuku. And as Izuku feels the power advancing and his stamina regurgitating, that's the wrong word, replenishing, yeah. And Izuku then looks at All For One and says, "All Might, together we'll do this," as the two of them alongside each other rush at All For One and start a physical fight. As All For One powers a lot of quirks into his left and right, and he fights them both off with one arm, Izuku being his left, and obviously the one he's handed with All Might for his right. And as he is slowly being cornered into one specific spot, he shoots an air pressured shot at the window and quickly jumps out of it, taking Shigaraki's unconscious body along with him. As Izuku tries to chase after him, All Might says, "No, boy, stop," as Izuku stops and says, "Fine," as he dispels all the clones in him and actually takes them out. As All Might's like, "What are you doing, boy?" As Izuku tells them to go fight the man that had run off, as they quickly rush after him. And All Might says, "What's your plan there?" As Izuku says, "I don't know. Just potential." As he quickly gets the memories back, as All For One had just disappeared. And since they can't get to him, they'd all dispersed. So they sit there and watch as their fellow classmates, well, Izuku's, and students, as they're all put onto stretchers and quickly transported to the hospital. As All Might's friend, the detective, starts talking to him, and they discuss everything that happened along with All For One and Izuku's immense strength with his clone quirk. And, it truly proved he was number one in his class. So, after that, we have a little time skip. About 1 week, as Aizawa that 1 week that we just skipped had told them about the sports festival, and they'd even done a little training. But Aizawa was still bandaged up, as always. So, as we arrive at the UA Sports Festival, everyone had just put on their uniforms and walked outside. Well, no, their gym wear. Whatever they're called. As all the students from different classes from UA High School all walk out. A, B, C, the... what's it called? No. I forgot, but it's the one Hatsume's in, along with the General Studies group. Why do I remember General Studies and yet I don't remember the one Hatsume's in? If you guys can, put that in the comments if you are still watching. Thank you to the people that still are. You guys are loyal. Thank you. So, Izuku and everyone walk out as Midnight announces the number one student in class 1A will be giving a short pledge as Izuku tells them all that he wants a great fight out of everybody and that nobody should give up. And even if it might seem really, a really strong desire to stop what they're doing, they shouldn't in the slightest. So, Izuku got a huge applause from the crowd, as you'd imagine. And yeah, that's how that went. And as always, we get the, what's it called? I forgot. But it's the, obstacle course. As Midnight spun her wheel and got the same thing as Cannon. And yeah, so Izuku and everybody got in one big group, and as Midnight threw her arm down with her whip, she said, "Start!" And everyone immediately rushed down one corridor, as Izuku quickly noticed he couldn't move, and so did the other students, as Todoroki sailed above them and quickly got off to a thundering lead. As Izuku makes a clone, and Izuku's clone throws him up and kicks him towards where everyone had been passed. So, yeah. And Izuku and everybody quickly start running after they get out of the ice. But some kids just couldn't outright. And that's where a lot of general studies kids were done there. But not people like Shinzo and others. So, as everybody keeps running towards the obstacles, Izuku quickly puts a couple clones specifically in his legs. And, yeah, Izuku from there, in the race, goes on to get second place behind Todoroki. And the rest... Actually, yeah, I just realized the rest of the sports festival will be the exact same. Yeah, okay. I'm sorry, guys, but yeah. So, Izuku and the internship arc won't happen because he doesn't have one for all. Even though he would be extremely gifted, he'd go to a prominent internship like Mr. Genus. Well, Best Genus, that's his name. As he did it along with Bakugo, and Bakugo is severely annoyed, but, they did what happened to Cannon. I wonder what Izuku would look like with a bowl cut. Anyway, that happens, and we go on to final exams. And for that, Izuku and everyone get their same groups, but Izuku actually is with Todoroki, because we'll say Todoroki, instead of Mirio, at the last moment, All Might had decided for young Todoroki to, and him and Endeavor came to a mutual agreement to make Shoto stronger. For that, he got one for all, and Shoto was super strong, by the way. So, when I said most students couldn't get out of that ice, most couldn't. Even a couple from 1B couldn't get out of it. Like, Tetsu, we'll say. And yeah, the bro-off would never happen. So, where were we? Right, final exam. So, as Izuku and Todoroki quickly start off after they'd been told to go, Aizawa and everyone watch as All Might immediately blitzes them, and with one fatal swoop, hits Todoroki strongly in the gut. But as Todoroki put a little ice right where he put him quickly with his fast reflexes, Todoroki still fell far back, coughing up a a lot of spit from his mouth as Izuku says, Todoroki, as All Might then kicked him into a building and says, ha ha ha, you think I'll go easy on you just because you're my students? Too bad. As they quickly rush away, as Izuku carried Todoroki and they went along the right side of the perimeter. As All Might had been trying to find them through tons of searching, Izuku eventually arrived at the exit, but as they were right there, Izuku made a break for it. Todoroki said, watch out, as Izuku was kicked in the gut hard right next to the exit, but Izuku couldn't get back up. His back was damaged really bad, as he makes 5 clones to go help Todoroki as they begin fighting All Might. And with Todoroki's hardened blue ice, along with blue fire from One for All, instead of using it, actually, it advanced his quirk. Because, it slowly piles stuff on, so it gave him something. But, like the past One for All users, guys, if this story were to go on, Todoroki would not get any additional quirks like Izuku did, because he wasn't quirkless. Yeah, slight spoiler. What was I thinking there? So yeah. As Izuku and everybody watched as Izuku with 2 clones helped him back up, and they dragged him into the exit and threw him there. As All Might notices and says, no, as he almost cut Izuku, but Izuku fell through the exit. As they're announced the winner. So, yeah, normal stuff happens, and we go to the summer training camp arc. And we're going to go all the way towards the important part. And, yeah, so Izuku arrives at his test of courage spot as he is waiting for his person to scare, because he went alongside 1B just to tag along for stuff. No reason at all, really. As he was with Tetsu and the redhead. I forgot her name. If you can put it in the comments, that'd be great. So, as they do the same thing, except they get mustered a lot quicker, and they do meet Momo and get their masks. And instead of Tetsu getting shot, Izuku gets it with a clone. And All for One arc happens the exact same, and everything else does too, except Overhaul arc. Izuku wouldn't fight him. Probably Todoroki, if he really didn't want to be close to his dad, because Izuku would have lost to Shinso instead, because he doesn't have One for All. So yeah, that is where I'll be leaving off on this story. Sorry I skipped through a lot of things, guys. I'm just not exactly into this what if much anymore. I'm very happy for the people that were patient with me on this what if. Thank you very much. And that, people, is where I'll be leaving off on this what if. This is Keto. Please comment what new what if you want in the comments. And yeah, this is Keto signing off. Goodbye.